right, welcome to a second rapid reaction of the Scarlet Faithful podcast here on Tuesday, January 23rd, with the news. Pete Thamel reporting once again a second defensive line coach hiring for Rutgers football today. This time it is Julian Campenni from Bowling Green, hours after reporting that Rutgers was hiring Colin Ferrell from Kent State. It appears now the defensive coaching staff is set for the 2024 season. So let's break it down. I did have a rapid reaction breaking down the news of Colin Ferrell from Kent State and the positives there, which I'll touch on here. But reporting that Campenni from Bowling Green, who was defensive line coach, running game coordinator, and also a head assistant coach at Bowling Green, has been there the last 5 years. He's going to coach the defensive ends, and you're going to have Colin Ferrell, who is the associate head coach at Kent State and longtime defensive line coach, was there for over a decade. He's going to coach the defensive line, specifically the tackles on the inside. With the void of Corey Heatherman leaving as linebackers coach and becoming the defensive coordinator at Minnesota, Joe Harasimiak, the defensive coordinator at Rutgers, is going to assume those duties. Rutgers is taking a very interesting approach now because in the secondary, they also have two coaches as well. They have Mark Orfrey, who coaches the cornerbacks, and then you have Drew Lascari, who coaches the safeties. So you have two assistants in the secondary, two assistants on the defensive line, and then your DCs covering the linebackers. It makes a lot of sense when you consider that Rutgers typically plays a 4-2-5 defensive front, and the defensive line is so crucial to, I think, this defense taking another step forward. And you're getting two veteran coaches now. Campenni is a little bit on the younger side, kind of fits more of the Watson mold, although he has more coaching experience. He was a GA at Boston College. He played at Connecticut, and he has been with Bowling Green for the last 5 years. The MAC is a very good conference. You're getting two established defensive line coaches from there to come on board. Again, I talked about this with Farrell. The recruiting footprint of the MAC is very similar to what you want to do in the Big Ten. So adding two guys like that, Campenni is also from Pennsylvania, so he's got to have relationships there as well. That's a territory you'd like to see Rutgers have some more success in also. And again, kind of a bonus is that you're keeping Marquise Watson on the staff. Obviously, due to health reasons, he was unable to continue as a defensive line coach. Huge recruiter for the program. Huge relationship builder for the program. A lot of the current players cite their great relationship with him and how much they love him. He's still going to be within the program. It's great that they're making it work. It's great for Marquise Watson as he continues to recover, and we wish him the best. But it's also, I think, a smart strategic move to now really hone in and have two assistant coaches focus on the defensive line, where Rutgers needs to establish more depth. They need to establish more consistency, and be more of a presence in terms of just generating pressure on a consistent basis for this defense. Again, we've talked about the personnel a little bit, but you have Aaron Lewis and Wesley Bailey back on the ends. Kenny Fletcher showed some flashes over time, although he did suit up a tight end in the bowl game. You have Jordan Thompson as well. And then on the interior, you added Malcolm Ray from Florida State. You have Renee Conga back. You have also, in addition, Keontae Hamilton back, and you have a lot of young players that you're looking to develop. Zaire Angoy showed some flashes as well. So you have two coaches focused on the development of this unit, and looking for cohesive development throughout the line. To be successful in the Big Ten, you typically want 8 to 10 guys you can comfortably rotate throughout the season. Rutgers year after year kind of gets worn down towards the end of the season on that defensive line. I think it happened to a degree again this year. Making it a priority makes a lot of sense. Utilizing that linebackers coaching role and integrating it into the defensive line. Harasimiak's done a great job as defensive coordinator. He's coached linebackers before. He was had a lot of continuity with Heatherman as well. You have some veterans, in terms of, at that position, in terms of Tyrone Powell coming back. You obviously have Mo Toure, depending on where he ends up. Was he going to be a traditional that second linebacker next to Powell? Is he going to continue in that hybrid role? All depends on the development behind him. Obviously, Moses Walker is a name, former 4-star that we hope develops as well. But I think this is, encouraging in that we know that, I mean, listen, Shiano is always going to prioritize the defense in terms of his expertise, in terms of what he knows. And I think to hone in on it in terms of, how he's allocating resources to the defense is important, because Rutgers needs this defense to take another step as much as the offense has to take a step forward. And we know that, the defense does too. And I think just in terms of how he's approached the coaching staff the last couple of years, I said this on the pod with Farrell, I think it's just he's being very strategic. He's making good hires. We've seen the impact that Pat Flaherty and Dave Brock made on the offensive end this year, and they're both retained. You had a lot of stability on the defensive coaching staff the previous 2 seasons. Now you have some fluctuation, but you're bringing in, in Farrell, a veteran guy that's done it, been there a long time, has a recruiting presence, has the New Jersey ties. Now you're bringing in kind of an up-and-coming coach who played as well. Both players, both guys played in college. Campenni played at UConn. Farrell played at Kent State. But they have, 15 years of experience combined. They both were the assistant head coaches of their previous teams. They coached in a competitive conference in the MAC. They have that Midwest presence. I think that there's going to be it's never 100% seamless, but I think in terms of what you're trying to do and just in terms of alignment and philosophy, I think it makes a lot of sense. And, you're going to have Farrell as the more experienced coach with Campenni with him. And the two of them really trying to elevate this position group is going to be really critical to 2024. And in terms of, having those strong veterans inherited, Malcolm Ray is a guy that's really exciting to have from Florida State. He has a lot of experience there. And can they get the most out of him? Can they, who knows if they end up adding another guy to the portal? Something to keep in mind, could they get a MAC player now from either Bowling Green or Kent State, or someone else that either of those guys have been in touch with and been recruiting? Something to watch for. But, certainly a pivot and an exciting day in terms of if you're looking ahead and how Shiano is approaching, this offseason. He has not been complacent at all. And, making moves to move the program forward this past year, 7-6, obviously the bowl win over Miami. And with the schedule, the way it's breaking, I had a podcast last week, it certainly gives hope that more progress can be made next year. And again, just going back to this transition, again, I think it's so it speaks so strongly to the culture of the program in terms of what they're doing with Marquise Watson, finding a new role for him off the field, keeping him a part of the program, but bringing in 2 coaches to focus on the defensive line now. And how that's going to impact recruiting in terms of their footprints, having the East Coast connections, but also having the Midwest connections. I think it makes a lot of sense all around. And certainly something to be excited about, I think just in terms of the continuity with the staff now. And I think, Shiano made some good hires when he first got here, but I think where he's getting the coaching staff now, it's about as good as it's been in quite a while. Certainly in a much more stable and experienced place than it was during the Ash era. And, Shiano was really good about developing younger assistants in his first era as head coach at Rutgers. But I think in the Big Ten, what he's, I don't know, I have to believe this is somewhat strategic. He's adapted. And even though Campenni, he's on the younger side, he's been a coach for 5 years in one place in the position of which he's coming in for. And being elevated to assistant head coach, he's bringing in guys that are ready. He's not bringing in, upstarts that don't have a lot of experience. Watson was probably the youngest guy that he brought in, and he was a rousing success. So, he's really bringing in established coaches that have established recruiting territories, that have experience coaching up players and coaching for winning programs. So I think good news all around. A lot of activity. We'll see if I have a third rapid reaction today for something else. I actually am waiting on the news for the McDonald's All-Americans. That's going to be announced, I believe, later today. So I might even be back with that, or maybe tomorrow morning, just talking about Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. Obviously, Rutgers commits expected to be announced. Would be a shocker if they were not. I just want to talk about recruiting and kind of the outlook of Rutgers basketball. I know people are down right now, but great football news today with both coaching hires. Pete Thamel, the first to report. All the other local beat guys have been on it as well in terms of just confirming right away and providing some background. So salute to them. And, I think that these are the kinds of moves that, Schiano he has to adapt along the way. And I think, this is an interesting adaptation and something I think you're going to see more of in college football. And you see with some other schools, but it's not as prevalent where you have two coaches for one position group. And they're really, honing in on splitting that group up. He already had done it with the secondary with Lascari and Ofri. And now you have it with Campenni and Ferrell. So you really have a lot of focus on that defensive position groups, which are key for Rutgers to move forward as a whole, as a team, as a defense in 2024. Thanks so much for listening and watching once again here at the Scarlet Faithful.